The two most common names mentioned at the top of this year's draft, Zaccharie, Risacher, and Alex Sarr, both have a compelling case to go number one. Sarr with his athleticism, size, and general skill for a big, and Risacher's shooting touch and well-rounded game. Neither are perfect prospects though, leaving the window open for a different prospect to surprise and go number one if they look good enough in the pre-draft process. Nikola Topic could be that player. A 6'6" point guard from Serbia, Topic has gone under the radar at the very top end of draft prospects for the 2024 draft, but in my eyes, he's shown enough to be taken into consideration. But how good is he really? Would it actually be reasonable to take him number one over a Sarr or a Risacher? Does he have that level of upside? Or does he best fit as a mid-lottery selection alongside Reed Sheppard, Donovan Clingan, or Ron Holland? What about his injury concerns? Today, we're going to break down that, along with his pros, cons, and the general outlook for Topic's game to see if he truly would be worth a selection near the top of the 2024 NBA draft. So with all that, let's get into it. Probably the biggest question mark in Topic's game is his shot making from around the perimeter. It just quite frankly isn't that good for a guard. He shot a combined 28.2% from three through all games, and the numbers didn't improve whether he was catching and shooting or shooting off the dribble. The main issue with his shot form is inconsistency in mechanics. At times his shot looks good, but it never looks the same every time. Sometimes it looks relatively smooth, and at other times it looks like he's shooting the ball with two hands. It's hard, but not impossible to be an impactful guard in the NBA without a strong jump shot, and you do see players that are successful without having the ability to shoot. But it makes it much more difficult, and it makes it much more likely that said player will bust if they don't develop that shooting. For what it's worth, I think that with Topic, it isn't as much a lack of shooting talent that causes his low percentage, but a lack of consistency in how he shoots it. One of the best indicators, as many know, in determining if a player will ever become a decent shooter is their free throw percentage, and Topic is actually an elite free throw shooter. Over the entirety of his career for Red Star and Mega, he shot 87% from the line. Additionally, he's known as a bit of a streaky shooter that can get hot and hit multiple threes in a row. My thought is, when he's shooting well, he subconsciously shoots without thinking and shoots the same way every time, while when shooting normally, he thinks about it too much. In all honesty though, out of all the top players in this draft who are inconsistent from three, the odds of Topic becoming a shooter are just as good as any of them. He's got all the signs of a player that could become a good shooter from range, so it's worth making that bet, but he isn't there yet, and there's always a chance that he never gains that ability. So as of now, the shooting is still a negative in his game overall. Now, putting aside the concerns with the actual shot making, as we just went into that in depth, Topic is pretty effective as a shot creator for himself. It's interesting to note he has very little in the way of a mid-range game. If he's creating his own shot, he's pretty much either pulling it for three or getting to the rim. Now, as far as shot selection goes, I can't knock that. The mid-range is the least efficient shot in the game, and it's fair not to take them all that often. I do wish he had that in his game a little bit more. Most of the top-level guys in the NBA go to the mid-range to mix it up and keep defenders honest, but he's usually good enough at getting all the way to the rim that he doesn't have to do that. But the pull-ups he does take, they're almost exclusively from distance, and that's fine. He doesn't make them all that much, but at times he shows good range, and he does a good job at actually getting himself open, even if he doesn't make the shot. Generally, his shot creation game consists of a mix of crossovers between the legs, stop-start acceleration, and change of pace type moves, and for the most part, it works well for him. While not a lightning quick athlete, he's got some good speed in transition and leads the break quite well, all things considered. I'm generally positive on his shot creation abilities. The vast majority of Topic's offense comes through his at-the-rim finishing, which he is exceptional at. At 6'7", he uses a mix of size and balance well in the paint and creating easy looks for finishes. He gets to the rim with regularity against professional level players and absorbs contact to finish at a high level. To score nearly 20 a game as a pass-first guard that can't really shoot is a really good reflection of how good he is as a finisher. He likes to go back to his dominant right hand pretty often, but at the same time he has a number of impressive finishes with his left, to where I wouldn't argue that his left hand is a weakness. He's just stronger with his right. But yeah, crafty finisher at the rim, does a good job getting there, and even with below the rim vertical athleticism, he should have no real issue finishing at the rim in the NBA. Usually with your prospects, you want to see them have at least one elite trait you're projecting them to be great at the pro level, or at least have something to lean on to make them useful from the beginning. And for Topic, that's his playmaking. Topic is probably the best playmaker in the draft. He has phenomenal court vision and anticipation, and his delivery on his passes is top tier. You're looking at a player who averaged 7 assists a game in a professional league here. He knows when and where his teammates are going to be and delivers the ball well. I would go as far to say that if he were a starter in the NBA next year, he would honestly be in the upper half of pure passing guards out of those starters. I just think his playmaking for others is that good at this point. A team who already has a go-to scorer in the lottery would be well served to draft someone like Topic who can set that scorer up in the right position to get a bucket. He just makes his teammates better, especially the forwards and centers who he works a great pick and roll or a pick and pop game with. I don't have much bad to say about Nikola Topic's passing game. Now, as a defensive player, he isn't overly strong. He lacks high-level lateral quickness and strength, so at least early on, offenses will probably pick on him around the perimeter. Some of his defensive shortcomings are solvable, namely his occasional lapses of focus, but he may never be a lockdown guy. And that's fine. It's possible to be a great point guard in the NBA without being a shutdown defender. There's numerous at the top of the league just like that, but being a liability is something that kills you in the playoffs. And so Topic needs to get out of that classification of being a liability and into the classification of average for teams to be comfortable with his defense. I do want to note that for one positive thing on the defensive end, he does actually cut passing lanes fairly well, so there's something to build on for him on that end. Anyone who regularly watches my videos knows I don't particularly love making the same player comparisons as everyone else. I see basically everyone comparing Topic to Goran Dragic, and some Shea comparisons for some reason, which is insane by the way, but that's neither here nor there. And while the similarities are there with Dragic was actually a very good shooter, and in my opinion not as much of a distributor as Topic is. I want to take a look at another European guard, and that is Tony Parker. Now, the draft hasn't happened yet as of filming this video, but the Spurs currently sit at number 4 in the draft, and also 8, and the possibility is there that Topic falls to them. And in turn, they would hope that he could fill even half the shoes that Tony filled when they won 4 championships with him at the helm running the offense alongside Tim Duncan. And there are some reasons to think he can do so. Now, Topic has some differences with Tony. Tony's 3 to 4 inches shorter and quite a bit quicker. Hard to be as quick as Tony Parker, but the way their games are styled are quite similar in all honesty. Firstly, they're both primarily inside-oriented guards that have the ability to work themselves into the paint and score consistently, even with below-average athleticism because of how they use their craftiness to make up shots. Neither are all that great of outside shooters. Tony had his years of solid three-point percentage later in his career, which could theoretically also happen for Topic. Neither are all that great on the defensive end, and both best fit the archetype of playmaking floor general with the ability to score when needed. I like the comparison, and like I said, if Topic ends up being as good as Tony Parker, whoever drafts him is going to be quite happy with that. Now, quick note on his injuries because it's a concern many have. Topic missed the whole second half of his 2023-24 season with a knee injury. Now, as a one-off, that isn't all that concerning, it happens, but then on May 14th he suffered another one, the same knee that took him out for months, mind you. Now, from all reports, it seems like the injury was not that serious this time, and he should be fine moving forward. The problem, though, comes in when looking at a pattern here. Recurring knee injuries as an 18-year-old is a major red flag. I'm not as concerned as I would have been if the injury ended up being more severe. The way that it appears now seems like more of a re-aggravation of an injury that already existed, but still, it's something worth taking into account. I'd still draft him high. I believe that the risk-reward is worth it, and that talent-wise, he's near the top of this draft, but it's not without risk. All in all, I love the dynamic that Topic projects to bring to an NBA team. He's got great floor general skills that are genuinely rare, and experience and success that compares well with most prospects in this class. And here's the one thing that I want to mention about Topic and guys like him, particularly players who lack certain tools in their game, like high-end athleticism or flashy traits or things along those lines. I think of like Jalen Brunson or Alperen Şengün in recent years. Totally different style players than Nikola Topic, but some of the same concerns. Brunson with the defensive liability and pedestrian physical tools concerns, and Şengün with the too small for a center and below average athlete concerns, and both probably went later than they should have because of those concerns. Topic may not go late, especially with the recent success of Euro prospects and the general weakness of this draft, but I could see a scenario where he falls to like 7 to 10 in this draft, especially with the injury concerns. That's too low for me. I think he's a top 3 player in this draft talent-wise, probably top 2. My point with bringing up Şengün and Brunson is, we as fans, and NBA GMs and scouts do the same thing, get enamored with things that don't really matter all that much when sometimes you just draft a player that's good at basketball, even with the question marks. A player that has had success at a high level and just makes things happen, regardless of the concerns that one brings up with the particulars of their game. Brunson just wins and produces. Has done it his whole career. Şengün was a dominant player in a high-level European league as a teenager. Topic is the same. Topic was near the top of the Adriatic League in both points and assists as an 18-year-old. Yes, he has concerns about his shot or his defense or his high-end athleticism. Fine, those are fair. But we see players overcome those concerns all the time. He has an elite trait, his playmaking. He's an intelligent player, he has phenomenal production in a great league that has been known for producing good players in recent years. In this draft, that is more substance than almost any other player has, and for that reason, I'm very high on him compared to other prospects in this class. I don't think I would take him number 1, especially if I'm the Hawks, unless I plan on trading Trey, but anywhere from 2 to 5 is where I would value him as a player, and if he falls further than that, that's a fantastic value pick. The only real major red flag I see is the injuries. That's obviously something that you can't really avoid, and it's a real concern to bring hesitancy in taking him. The NBA draft is never without risk, however, and I think just based on pure skill alone, Topic is a great pick and has a very high chance of being a solid starter in this league from the beginning with the potential for more. And with all that, we conclude this video. I appreciate you all watching this one, whether you agree or disagree with my analysis here. And if you enjoy this type of content, be sure to like and subscribe. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed. Hey, thanks again for watching this video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click on one of these videos here to see more.